Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out.
Hey everybody, welcome to Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. I'm Dave, and here with me as always is my good friend Chris.
Hello everyone.
Wow, Chris, okay, fall is going to be here. It can't get here soon enough.
Agreed. I'm a big fan of fall, big fan of winter. I'm one of those cold weather guys, which my wife completely disagrees with, and that is a struggle to maintain a decent temperature in our house. But I am looking forward to fall.
I like it freezing cold myself. However, I'm a fall spring guy, so definitely excited about fall. We are not in fall yet, but we will be. And this is the weather podcast, folks. We're just going to talk about the seasons here in Southwest Missouri.
We did that a couple episodes ago,
we're gonna, yeah. It's just, it's sort of that default small talk chatter. So as you guys are hearing this, fall's on its way. Kids are back in school. The summer is over, which has got some, good stuff and bad stuff. But it's, it's the seasons are changing, and before you know it, it's gonna be Christmas.
That's right.
And you're gonna go $10,000 into debt on gifts,
and then New Year's, and I'm gonna have to. It'll take me 6 months to get the date right, and then it'll change again. And
all the checks you write, because I'm still constantly writing checks at the grocery store, and
it makes me
dirty looks.
I feel regal doing it.
Just look, sir, you're buying a bag of checks mix. I know. I just want to make sure I get this.
Do you take a check as I'm writing?
Writing it 10 over. I need $10 in cash to tip my chauffeur who drove my limo to the store to buy Chex Mix.
I think all of our listeners know what you're talking about, and that dilemma.
Right. They always constantly getting their servants to carriage them to the local grocery store where they write a check for a snack food that is made of checks.
It's daily life. I mean, it's what we do.
Well, before we jump in to the topic today, I've got a question. I saw something recently, it puzzled me, and instead of going and researching it and learning about it and forming an informed opinion, I decided I was going to talk about it on the show.
Fantastic.
So this is what I saw. I went into a local restaurant. We are here in Southwest Missouri. We have a local restaurant that's well known and well liked. It's called Thai Express, and I don't know if you've been there, Chris. We haven't talked about it.
I am aware of Thai Express.
We frequent it too much. I haven't been removed from the restaurant yet. They like us, but inside Thai Express there is a cutout of the owner standing there. You can take your picture by, which is bizarre, folks. It's really odd, but there is in the restaurant a cutout of the owner, and next to it there's a sign that says "Coming soon, Patreon." Ask your server for details. And I'm like, okay, I am aware of what Patreon is. I have a couple of Patreon subscriptions, but I can't imagine a Patreon subscription to a restaurant that you eat at, right? Because Patreon is all about, you're either supporting some sort of artistic or entertainment or some other endeavor that you think is worthy of support that might be a source of revenue for them, right?
Sure.
Or something you're doing for additional content inside of podcasts do them, YouTube channels do them. But a restaurant, you go in there, you order food, you eat it, you leave. I'm not sure where the Patreon comes in. So I was going to ask you one, do you have any idea what that might be about? And two, what is your opinion of Patreon in general? Are you a Patreon?
Okay.
A patron, excuse me, of anything.
Yes. So I'll say that as soon as you mention that, and I did not know that about Thai Express. Thai Express is not one of our favorite restaurants. I'll give a shout out to Thailand Station in Springfield, Missouri. Excellent Thai restaurant. So I didn't know they were doing a Patreon. So as soon as you mentioned that, I thought that's completely ridiculous. And I am aware of the owner of Thai Express. I don't know him personally, but I'm aware of him. He's a character. He's kind of a local celebrity.
Sort of, kind of.
And so the fact that he would try to do something like that is not surprising at all. But then as you were talking and I was kind of mulling it over in my brain, I kind of love the idea of like a Patreon exclusive menu. Like you go in there and you prove that you're a patron. And then suddenly you get rolled out, you get the 15 minutes off your wait. You get a special menu that you can order from. Maybe you get like a free appetizer for being a Patreon subscriber or something like that.
All right.
There might be something to that.
There might be something there. It just seems like an odd
I agree.
thing to do. it's about arts. Not I don't know, maybe very broadly. And of course, it's culinary arts, but it's a restaurant. They already get money by charging you for the food that you eat.
But I'll also grant that the economy is in such a strange place right now.
That's true.
And I do without getting like theoretical or political or anything like that. I do think we're going to see some fundamental changes in the way our society functions, in our lifetimes. Even I think we're going to see that, and so maybe this is part of that, because one of the great things about Patreon, and I'll get to the second part of your question, which is, do I participate in Patreon in a minute? But one of the great things about it is consistent, countable income. And to an artist who is producing something, having that consistent, countable income that they know is going to hit their bank account is invaluable. And then that allows them to go on and to safely feel like they can create and put their product out in the world and make the people who enjoy their particular brand of whatever happy. I could see a restaurant arguably being in the same situation. You don't know if you're going to flip all the tables that evening. You don't know if tips are going to maintain at the level that they are. So if you had another revenue stream, and again, it comes down to, what am I getting out of it? If he's just like, give me more money, be a patron, then
so that I can continue to be in business.
Yeah, exactly.
Just raise your prices.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
but if there's a trick to it, like maybe prove you're a patron, you get one free meal a month. Something, I don't know, that might be compelling.
You'd go broke if that was us as frequently as we eat there. It was an interesting idea, and I was like, well, I don't quite know. I don't know. So that brings us to the next question. I do want to hear: are you a patron of anything?
Yes, I am. I there are things out there that I'm a huge fan of, and I know it's just individuals who are doing their own efforts to create content that is either podcast or YouTube based, and I appreciate their content at the level that I'm like, okay, yes, I will be a patron to you. Now I kind of just dipped my toe into it. I kind of set my personal monthly budget of $20 that goes to Patreon. And that gives me about 4 people that I sponsor or whatever the verbiage is. But I think it's a great system. I think it was a fantastic answer to some of the YouTube rule changes that made it difficult for content creators to get paid and to keep making money with what they create. So to be able to go there and to say, I'm specifically going to give you X dollars a month towards the content, I think it's a great way to support artists. I think it harkens back to even like Renaissance days, where artists would have a patron, hence the name, and they'd be given money to create their art because somebody was like, I'm just a huge fan of what this person's doing. And I think that's cool. So yeah, I do use the system. I sponsor a couple of people, and only one of them do I do it for a specific perk, because I like one of the podcasts that I sponsor, I get the episode a week early, which I think is awesome. But everybody else, even though they have little perks to sponsor, I don't care about that. I just care that I'm contributing something to this individual and helping them to maintain the ability to create things that I enjoy.
So I also participate. I am a patron of 2 different things. One is a podcast, and the Patreon is their only source of income. They don't monetize. They don't have ads. This is how they do it, right? So, and I enjoy the podcast very much. I'm a regular listener, so I throw that in. It's totally worth it. The other one I'm a patron of is a business that I buy a lot of product from. I pretty much buy almost everything that they produce. And the value that I'm getting out of the patron subscription is actually more expensive. Isn't quite there. So I haven't. It's still, not too much, but I haven't enjoyed what I'm getting out of it. So I feel like I'm already their patron by buying pretty much everything they make. Right. So I don't know if that's necessary, but yeah, it's an interesting. Really what I'm doing here is, folks, we're setting up a patron. We need your Patreon. We need your money. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars, please keep the lights on. I'm joking, but I'm not. This is not floating in the show. No. It's really like is this a good idea? And I think that the answer is, I think if that is a source of income, that is a way to keep something that you love going, then I absolutely think it is. But if it does feel like a cash grab, which in one of the ones I'm a membership of, it's starting to feel that way. Like, I'm not really getting anything out of this, and you should be operationally covered by the product that you sell. And if you're not, maybe you need to rethink your business model a little bit so that you
Right.
can be without this whole new side thing. You know, I don't know. At any rate, it's kind of it's like tip culture a little bit, but I think that it's also different that because it's an artistic or an entertainment type service. And
Totally. And I don't know about you, but the ones that I do sponsor, I mean, you can tell it's a homegrown effort. It's not like I'm not a Patreon of Conan O'Brien needs a friend or anything at that level. Like it's people
does he have
who
Patreon?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, I didn't.
But it was the biggest podcast I could think of at the time.
Smartless. I wonder if Smartless has a Patreon.
I don't know.
Patreon.
But so like I would be less inclined to support something like that. And I'm more inclined to support the guy that he's doing this out of a love for whatever the subject he's talking about or whatever the product he's making is. And like the restaurant thing, if it was the right restaurant and the right benefit, I might consider it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting application and a different way to think about
It's creative.
It sure is.
And he is known for being a creative fella. This guy who owns a restaurant.
He's kind of known for trying anything. If it sticks to the wall, then great.
Well, I like his peanut chicken. So
That's fair. I don't mind it. My wife is not a fan of the restaurant at all.
All right. Well, anyway, so that's it. That's the Patreon episode.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right. No, so I think that this is kind of a lead-in, right? Because this is not a discussion that you could be having, right, in the same way if we weren't constantly plugged in to that horrible, evil thing, which nothing good has ever come from.
No. Yeah.
The internet.
Exactly.
And generally being plugged in at large, right? I realize the internet's the backbone, but the topic we're going to talk about today is, man, we are plugged in.
Yeah.
All the time.
And then on the other flip side of that coin, how do we unplug?
That's right.
And how important to us is it that we unplug?
And how the heck did it get so bad?
That's a good question.
I'm looking at the negative. How did it get so bad?
I don't know the answer,
Every
Dave.
time my phone rings, I'm like in some sort of weird shock, like it's work calling me, and work hasn't called me in 10 years needing anything.
No, I get mad anytime my phone rings at all. I'm like, why aren't you texting me?
Why aren't you texting me? Yeah. Well, really, I think we're talking about the internet, whatever. It's really about faxes today. We're going to talk about, I'm constantly getting faxed.
Wow.
30, 40 pages of stuff a day, mostly menus from restaurants. This is sort of a thing, right? Where people are looking at it and saying, am I, in this new post-COVID-ish world?
And it is starting to come to light that it is a real impact on mental health. You can open any webpage, ironically, and
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. I was looking at my phone the whole time you were talking.
It's okay. You don't need to listen. I'm talking to the listeners.
Okay, excuse me. I'll go back to looking at my
very,
phone.
very good. So you open up any webpage and there's some article about how, Facebook is causing the anxiety overload of America. And so there are some real issues to this topic. And I think it's a relevant topic to discuss. And I'm interested to see how you unplug, because honestly, I need some good ideas.
Well, I hope we can come up with something today. Why don't we start, where did you plug in?
Well, I woke up in this pot of goo, and Lawrence Fishburne was there, and he explained,
was this fat Lawrence Fishburne, or
this was
reasonably trim?
Svelte with sunglasses that had no ear hooks on the Lawrence Fishburne.
Late 90s Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, there you go. No, I mean, that's kind of a broad question. So when did I plug in? I was an early adopter to this internet thing. And I think that you remember the crazy internet service that our local public library had.
Orion,
Ozarks. Yes.
Ozarks Regional. It's called Orion Online. Let me get back. Orion Online, Ozarks Regional Information Online Network Online. Yes.
And for listeners out there who understand the history of the internet, our library system to this day, the URL is thelibrary.org. So they were on this early to get that URL. And they developed an online system, and it was free, and you'd fill out a form and they would give you access. It was dial up. It was no graphics at all. It was completely text.
Yep. Hypertext.
Hypertext. So even though there were graphic web pages at that time, it would render them just as text on the screen.
You needed a PPP or a SLIP connection, point-to-point presence, or I can't remember what SLIP stands for, but those were graphical protocols, right? And what we had was a hypertext, very basic dial-up connection.
Yeah.
I remember going on there. I remember getting my first email address.
Yeah.
I wish I still had it written down. It'd be interesting to remember. I think it was numbers or something. I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember either. I do remember never getting an email.
I know. I never got an email. And I also remember going and doing my first web search with web crawler.
Yes.
Which was just after web crawler. I mean, web crawler came about in 94, so this would have been 95, 96.
So that's what I wrote down. 95 or 96, I think is when we were doing this. And I'm proud to say my first web crawler search, Blade Runner.
Was it?
Yes,
I don't remember what it was. It was probably like
no, and I specifically remember the website loaded, of course, hypertext, so I couldn't tell what anything was, and I clicked on something, and it took forever to load, and it ended up being like a 2-minute web video of the spanner taking off in Blade, and I was just like, you can get video on the internet?
Yeah.
Just completely mind blown. But we had Orion, and then even before Orion, we dabbled in bulletin boards.
BBSs, yes. So BBSs, here's how I've written down my note on BBSs is it's Reddit quality interaction, except you can go meet the people at the bowling alley. So it's like Reddit but worse.
Exactly. It's the worst possible
local
combination.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful. The BBS, I had a 2400 baud modem. You dial into a BBS, you'd wait, and you get a bunch of text. There was graphical BBSs, RipScript. I don't know if you remember RipScript. It was a graphical,
vaguely.
It was like an HTML.
Was it like ASCII art kind of thing? Or
No,
was
RipScript was an actual vector-based. I believe it was vector-based graphics where it could draw things. Or actually, I think it was a mark. Well, I think it may have been vector-based. Anyways, it was an early implementation of a language that would render things on the screen graphically, and you could navigate through them at low speeds. But we only had one or two of those around. I mean, Media Magic. Now I can remember a few of them. Hard Rock BBS, Media Magic.
I hadn't thought about that in years.
Yeah, I know. But I, 2400 baud modem dialing into these ridiculous.
And for the younger listeners out there who don't believe a word we've said, being connected to the BBS and your parents picking up the phone to make a call and completely screwing up your connection,
your download, you guys started to get CRC errors.
Exactly, because the only thing bulletin boards were good for, from my memory, is downloading shareware versions of Doom.
Yes, or like, I really want to play Monopoly on my computer, so you get a version of Monopoly someone made on their own. It's unplayable.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just easier to do it on a board.
So then to jump ahead from
less said about the BBSs, the better. They were awful.
It was a very strange time. But it felt exciting. It was like the Wild West.
It was a gateway drug.
Yeah, there you go. So then to move on, the next thing is probably around 2000-ish. I got high-speed internet. I got a cable modem.
2001 is what I have written down here. And I did various dial-ins, intermittently. I had AOL for a very brief period of time. I had AOL in the walled garden days before it was really internet, right? When you were on the AOL keyword to type in your AOL keyword, and you could get to some place, and it was I think I had like a 10-hour thing, right? And I did it and never re-upped it because it was early enough where the BBSs were actually a better value, which was they were free. So I preferred those, but then I did get dial-up internet. Various local dial-up places had a 56K modem, and then finally high speed comes to our area and becomes reasonably priced enough. And then about 2001, and then I also had internet at work, and then I feel like, all right, now I'm really plugged in.
Oh yeah, what was the there was a T1 connection at work that was just
we got the T1 in
so much
faster. Get a T5 next year. Like, the T5, that's 5 times better. I don't know what a T. I know what a T1 is, but at the time I was like, T1, that's
I know, and it's
better than an ISDN or even a dual channel ISDN, right? Those were old technology things that meant something back then, meant a lot.
And I remember going home to my poor little cable modem, being like, man, this is so slow compared to the work T1. But anyway, my next milestone, and if you've got something before here, you can chime in. But my next milestone is 2005, which is when I finally got a cell phone.
Yeah, so I had a cell phone in 1997.
Yeah, I was late to the cell phone.
I was an early cell phone adopter, and then I had work cell phones in 2000, in 99 and 2000. I had work cell phones, 2000 I did. And then I was carrying a BlackBerry for work by like '04.
Yeah.
So I was I mean, at that point, like plugging in, like I was plugged in when I was carrying the work cell phone, and then when I got the work BlackBerry, it was like jack me into the Matrix, another Lawrence Fishburne. But that, I mean, it was inescapable then. I was never able to, at that point, I felt like I was always on. And work, I was on pager duty at work a lot, or I was the manager on call. And every time the phone would ring, 9 times out of 10, it was a work thing. And back then, it meant, I was going to do, I mean, it didn't mean I was going to answer a question and go back to, it meant I was going into the office,
Right.
I was connecting, I was dealing with a real issue. So I got very, just very nervous when the phone rang. My blood pressure go up. It just, it was like, oh, boy, here we go.
So mine was a little different. I am proud to say I've never had a job that was important enough that they handed me a cell phone. And that's the way I like it. I don't want tremendous responsibility in that regard. But 2005, we had 2 kids. I was trying to get freelance work up and running. And so the need to be reachable at all times became a thing. So I bit the bullet and went and got a cell phone. It was a flip phone. In many ways, still the favorite phone I've ever owned because it was so simple. It did very little except take a call. I could text on it, but it was with the number pad thing. And that was back when you had like 20 texts. And then if you did more than 20 texts, you'd have to pay a dime for each text you sent or received. So if you had a friend that was really hitting the text hard, you'd be like, what are you doing? You're costing me money. So those were the days.
I did not text until I had a full keyboard, which was around the BlackBerry days.
Right.
Then I realized, and then when I had someone to text, because everyone that I had, when I first started with the BlackBerry, I would send work emails and that was fine. But in terms of texting, everyone still had the old style phones.
Yep.
So it was a few years before the full QWERTY keyboards came out, and then other people would start texting, and then it became...
Well, I remember, I don't remember the carrier, but I remember the commercials on TV that were announcing text messaging on a cell phone. And back then you'd watch these commercials and be like, who would do that?
It's 3 buttons to hit C?
Exactly. What? Yeah. Why is this a thing? And now, of course, it's the #1 preferred method of communication.
Have you ever seen, not to bring this him up again, but it might as well, Norm Macdonald on David Letterman when he's showing David Letterman how to tweet with his old cell phone, and he's trying to tweet with a cell phone that's just a keypad, right? I don't, and he's like, well, hang on just a second. He was trying to tweet to Steve Martin because David Letterman was telling him what to say, and he was taking Norm so long to type this message in, and David goes, the Twitter, the technology of the future is Norm was laughing, and Norm is breaking. He's actually laughing. It's very funny. But no, that's how hard it was. Like in the early days, this was like 2010. This was early days of Twitter. I'm thinking as I'm watching the clip, I'm like, why doesn't Norm have a BlackBerry, or something, right? He's got this is early Twitter days.
Yeah. And speaking of Twitter, I would estimate that probably 2007 or 2008 is when I got on Facebook and Twitter.
I knew Facebook was Twitter. I thought Twitter came. Okay,
no, and in fact, I Googled the date Twitter launched because I was like, because it felt like that was the same time, but I was like, surely not. But it was, and I got on them again for like freelance work purposes and trying to. At that time, I was trying to be a complete marketing solution to people. And so social media marketing was becoming a thing. And I thought, well, I better understand these tools. And then we used them to put together marketing packages for people. And that's how I attempted to make money back then.
It's interesting how so much of what we're talking about, it's work that's leading us to do these things.
Yeah.
I will say, and we talked about this in a previous episode, that I was also very connected. I was an early streaming adopter, getting the first, when they had the Netflix first release of their box, which was by the company that ultimately came to be known as Roku. And so I was getting plugged in there too. And there was like, I think we talked about 50 things on there, then it was nothing, and you were just desperate to find anything. But like, this is the future, right? And that whole, I can't wait till I can get rid of cable and satellite or whatever, satellite I had at the time, and do this all the time. But it was nowhere near that. I don't even think I was, I'm probably revisionist thinking I was thinking that way. I don't know if I ever believed it would ever be that awesome.
No, at that time, I certainly did not believe it would be that awesome. And then I finally joined the Netflix streaming. It was with a video game console, maybe like Xbox 360, something like that. I didn't have the original Roku box, but joined it just because it was a thing and it was there. It was like, okay, let's see what this does.
And it was free when you had the disc thing at the time. And if you had a a box like the 360, which was one of the early ones. The Wii 360
Yep.
and the PS3 were all early, consoles that would do it. Some of the early DVD players also,
Yep.
the network connected DVD players did that as well. But
Yeah, so I was plugging in that way as well.
Yeah.
So we had the work plug in, and then we by default had the entertainment plug in as well.
your whole life is getting saturated.
It really, really is. So was there any point during this time, you talked about the anxiety of the work phone call and that kind of thing. Was there anything else during any of these plugging in years where you were like, this might be a problem?
Boy, no, but it was always related to work, right? Because I never did social media, and it was always related to work, and it was never like this is going to be a problem. It's just I just got a lot of work stuff going on. So no, I don't really think so. I would say, I really don't. I think the real true distraction level came much later, and I'm actually going to say for me personally, it's when I got on social media during COVID. And I still don't do a whole lot on social media. Obviously, I do things for the podcast, but when I would just start to buy stuff on Facebook Marketplace, it was my entry into Facebook. It was in my wife had for many years she had bought a lot of stuff on Facebook and Craigslist before that. But I won't say I started to say, okay, I am allowing myself to be distracted too much until the COVID timeframe hit, and everybody was looking for something to do. And so I had kind of broken down. Before that, the only thing I had on Facebook was I wanted to keep tabs on one of my kids' friends, so I created a fake account with a fake identity, and this person was very stupid, and accepted my friend request, even though I was a fake person with a fake identity. Kane or Danda, a big pot smoker from Arkansas, very cool guy. I found a picture, created a whole. He went to Oral Roberts University, but he was quickly kicked out. I had a very elaborate backstory for this fake character, and that was the most social media I used, was creating this and then following this individual and occasionally sending fake messages to him and just watching him scramble as he tries to remember who I am. But but very, very little of that until I finally broke down and got on social media a little bit, and for Facebook, for Marketplace, but Reddit, and I started to follow things on Reddit, and I knew of Reddit, and I'd used it occasionally for work stuff, but now that I was using it for to keep up with stupid TV shows or whatever, that's when I was like, okay, this is a time sink. This is a major distraction. It's not healthy on any level. It's just frustrating, and that's when I would say it took a while, but that's when I would say, okay, this could be a problem.
I think my realization that this could be a problem came a lot earlier, certainly before COVID, and I would pinpoint maybe the iPhone being the thing that tipped the scale for me, because when the first iPhone came out, I like to think of that as the glory days of Apple, when Apple was creating stuff that you didn't know you wanted, but then when they showed it to you, you were like, how have I lived my life without that? And I think the iPhone fell into that. So I was there in line day one for the first iPhone. And I just thought it was the most miraculous device that you could possibly imagine. Got one, and then the iPhone 3G came out, and with that came the App Store, and that's when all the distraction exploded for me. And I realized very quickly that I'm tapping on this, 4-inch screen or whatever the 3G was, and I've got my entire family on the sofa next to me, and I don't even know what they're doing.
Right.
And so there was something about the immediacy of that piece of technology, because I could walk away from a computer on my desk. My little flip phone didn't have the ability to deliver that much information to me. Everything else, it wasn't invasive, but that iPhone was. And I'm not saying that smartphones are bad or anything like that. I mean, I have one in my pocket and use it, but that very early, I was like, oh, I have to be careful with this, because this could take over everything.
Very consuming. Our heads in the machines.
Right.
Yeah, and I did a lot of that with email, work email. Work email was always the thing. Particularly, I used to work for a different company. I have a different job now with a different culture, and they do not reward that working 24/7. But I worked for many years for a company that rewarded the if you're sending emails at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, then you are doing the best job. And if you're not sending emails or you're not responding to those emails that we send at late at night, yeah, are you slacking off? Are you really that committed? And there was a culture like that for many years where I worked, and I became engrossed. And when I moved to this, it was interesting. When I moved to this new company that did not have that culture, people would be like, Dave, stop sending emails at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, well, you don't have to respond to them, but sometimes I will do that. Just know that I don't have to respond to them. And now I've really slacked off of that too, because I realize it's not healthy, right? So, And working from home also, I think, helps me temper that a little bit more, because you could get sucked into working 20 hours a day if you're not careful.
You know, that's interesting that you say that. When I started working from home, I found it much easier to maintain a schedule. Like when I work at an office, I will just instinctively bring work home with me, and it's much more difficult for me to shut off. There's something about working from home for me where when the clock strikes whatever time you get off, shut down, move on, I'm done. So I really found working from home to be a wonderful thing for mental health and family relationships and just my life in general. And I've talked to other people who've had that problem. They're like, well, it's home, you're always there, and it's always present. That was never an issue for me.
Well, it also depends on the company culture that you work in. It was an issue when I did it in my old company. It's not an issue at my new company, as I've learned. But yeah, it also depends on your personality, right? And where your office is, right? So my office is here in TMAG Studios. It also is my work office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, imagine that. It's also a closet where we store clothes. Although when I'm on the webcam, people think it looks like a proper office. That's the trick. That's the magic trick I have. And so I'm not in here, right? I do find myself in here sometimes. Usually I'm getting like a towel, right? But it's a closet. It's a large closet. It's a good size. I'm very happy with it. But I'm not in here very often, so I don't get tempted, right? So if you did, like some people have their bedroom's also their office, I would see like it would be really hard not to walk by. Oh, I could do this 'cause I'm already in here. Or I'm just going to sit and watch TV and mess around my laptop. That is one rule I have, is that this laptop only leaves my office when I'm traveling, or if I have to watch a kid for a few minutes, I have to do it, right? But just in general, I don't take it out and go do work in the evenings when we're supposed to be watching TV. That's a big no-no.
Right.
I would always get in trouble on vacations, because it would always be like, the question is, how are you going to unplug before a vacation? So that I would always have to, bargain or make a promise to my wife. And I remember there were, in my old job, in my old life, there were some vacation where some days were ruined by work stuff just pulling me away. I can remember being at Disney World and taking multiple customer calls or escalation and handling. I remember being at Disney World, Magic Kingdom, before the Lion King show, I think it was. And I was trying to get off this phone call before the Lion King show started. So I remember that happening all the time, being on the bus at Disney and doing work emails because I had to deal with an escalation. And, there was this expectation that even when you're off, you're still going to answer emails. Absolutely. And, I did have one executive who said, if you want to be at the executive level, which is always what I've been working towards, you've got to make sure you're connected all the time. And it's kind of a negative message. Now, what I've learned to do is turn the email off on the phone and then check your email in the night before everyone goes to bed. You take an hour and say, I'm going to do this. If it's important, I'll take care of it, or in the early morning, but not when anyone is trying to do vacation stuff. And I've learned that. And, that's a culture thing. If you work for a company with a healthy culture, they won't ask you to do those things. That's
true. And if we have any listeners who are the CEO types that say, if you want to be at this level, you better be engaged 24 hours a day, you're wrong and you're evil.
Yeah.
So that's
Take that, Elon.
Exactly.
That's actually, unfortunately, that is one of Elon Musk's weak points, is that he thinks people should work 24/7, and not realizing that it's unhealthy for him too. Right. Sure, he's successful, but I think at the end of the day, he's got 87 kids. How many of those are actually going to know his dad?
Right.
Know him as their dad. Right. They're going to know him as that guy who bought Twitter out of spite, or X. Excuse me. X. But, it's extremely unhealthy. And, work-life balance isn't just a saying. It isn't just something that's on your corporate mantra. It's something that is you have to practice.
Yeah.
And unplugging, especially when you're off, saying when you're going to be off, you're going to be really off. Don't come on. Like if somebody's off and I see them on Slack, I'm always like, what are you doing? Get off. You're get off Slack.
Yeah.
Don't be on here. Slack is one that's easy to get sucked into. Email, the culture is such that email is not such a big deal anymore. People are emails for boomers and Gen Xers, right? But Slack is what everybody uses when they're going to talk, or Discord.
Yeah.
And those are ones that are real easy to get sucked into.
Very true. And not just unplugging from work, but also unplugging from these things that may be distracting you that are not work related. That's something that is seemingly fun and enjoyable, but if you're too obsessed with it, can be damaging. So I think one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from you in a way that you unplug is you set boundaries, which is very important. I'm curious, what other unplugging techniques do you have?
I put the phone on the charger and leave it on there for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
That is something that I have been much, much better at, or at least for a large portion of the night. I've been looking at smartwatches, and I'm like, man, do I really need to be? I put the phone on the charger. Now I'm like going to look, and I really want a Pixel watch to go with my Pixel phone, to go with my Pixel earbuds, right? So I can be part of this Mr. Pixel. Yeah. But it's not a very wise idea, I don't think. But yeah, I put the phone on the charger and try not to touch it. Although I have to say, I have gotten much worse in the last couple of years about the plugging in for stupid things, right? For non-work things. Mm-hmm. Your Facebooks, your Reddits. I do not do TikTok, but I could see, and I won't, because YouTube is I'm bad about, right? I have many different YouTube folks that I watch, and they post their 10-minute videos a day. And if I watched all of them, I probably wouldn't get anything done but watching the people who post every day. Right. But those things are real time sinks. My wife loves TikTok. I do not understand it. Thankfully, I dislike it. So I'm thankful. I'm so afraid of getting sucked into that because it's just negative. I think I just don't. Nothing good comes of that, and truthfully, nothing good comes of Facebook except for the good deals you can get on Marketplace, because you can get some really good deals. So I don't mean to make this an entire episode of me interviewing you. No, I promise I'll share some of my thoughts on this as well. But you bring up interesting points, and it causes questions to form in my mind. So I think anybody can understand the distinction between work-life balance. But is there a point where you're YouTube watching, you're Reddit reading, any of these types of things, where you feel like they start to become a detriment to you as a human being? Not even necessarily husband, father. Sure. Just person. Well, yeah, a couple things. Well, first of all, if I'm reading about something and then I'm like, stop, why am I reading this? Do I need to know this? Do I need to know that Yoko Ono, embarrassed John Lennon by screaming with Chuck Berry on a music video they recorded, or a music session they recorded, by singing very badly? Do I need to know that? Do I need to see that video? And the answer is yes, of course, because anything mocking Yoko Ono is good. No, and look, is this valuable, right? There's some things I read about. I love to read about the space program. I'd love to read about that. That's cool. That's history, right? World War II history. That's great. If I'm reading about these alien conspiracy theories just to frustrate me and get me mad how stupid people are, that is bad for me. If I'm reading anything politically oriented, regardless of what side that it's from, it's become toxic. So I stay away from politics. I mean, I'm not uninformed, but I stay away from, that's not to say I stay away from news, I stay away from the opinion stuff on social media, and I curate my news, and I don't let algorithms feed it to me. I go and seek it from trusted sources from across the board. But I just do all that. But I avoid anything where I try to avoid anything where I'm going to participate in a posting discussion, because that never goes. It's never like, hey man, that's a great story. Thank you for writing this. I really appreciate it. It's always something like, you're wrong. And this is why. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But eat your eyes like jujubes, which is, famous. That's from Avatar. Exactly. Of course, yeah. It's a thing. I was actually responding to a Stephen Lang post on Facebook. Now, did he threaten to eat your eyes? No, I was threatening him, and then the police visited. He should know what that means. Yeah. Okay. Means you're insane. He goes, "What's a jujube?" I know I said that. What is that? I don't even. James Cameron wouldn't tell me. Yeah, so anything that is an interaction with strangers, it runs the risk of becoming unhealthy. So I very, very rarely, but occasionally do, post. Every time I've ever responded to something on Facebook, I'll be honest, I've regretted it. Even when anything came of it, I always just feel like, ew, ick, why did I do this? And just, even when I'm pointing out, even when I'm making a little funny comment, okay, maybe not every time. For example, somebody posted there was a tombstone that was made to look like a full-size Pac-Man arcade game. And I sent it over to our good friend at the Retro Gamers, Larry Mormon. I tagged him on it and said, hey, Larry, I heard Billy Mitchell immediately filed a lawsuit against his tombstone. And I thought that was hilarious. I don't know if Larry saw it or not, but I thought it was really funny. And okay, that one I did not regret.
Sure.
But I regret most of them. Even if I didn't say anything bad, I was like, why am I participating in this?
Yeah.
Billy Mitchell sued me for making that joke about Billy Mitchell suing someone.
I'm not surprised. Litigation pending. But I completely hear what you're saying. It's about being careful about what you read, and is it important, and is it something I need to be filling my brain space with?
Would I pick up a book with this information?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And if the answer is, as many of the things I read about history, World War II, the space program, yes, I probably would. The Yoko Ono stuff, probably not.
Not reading that book. Yeah. And that's fair. And, I intentionally unplugged from social media in 2012, and I'm completely confident of that date because 2012 is when I closed my company that I was doing the freelance work through and said, I got to go a different route. This isn't working. And so when that need was over, I left Facebook, left Twitter, left everything, and never looked back. My wife still engages in social media, which is great because I feel like I'm still connected to all of her friends because she tells me something they've posted, and I'm like, fantastic. But it has absolutely zero place in my life. I'm not interested in it. If I read Reddit, it's just because I Googled a specific question, and that took me to
Reddit,
exactly. Yeah. I've never posted on Reddit. I do watch YouTube. But selectively, and
don't read the comments.
No, heavens
Stay
no.
Out of the comments.
That's a cesspool.
It is.
But at the start, when I first started using YouTube, did go down the YouTube rabbit holes and would come up a couple hours later and be like, "Whoa, it just happened." I've gotten better about that, just because if I don't have that discipline, I know I'll lose myself in it.
Yeah.
And so I'm very guarded. I have many walls and many processes. That sounds very analytical, but I have things that I do to make sure that I don't get too invested in those things and stay kind of grounded in the real world. And my wife and I were having a discussion once because there was some kind of a post on her Facebook feed that upset her, and she's like, was furiously for hours trying to figure out how to respond. And she would write a draft and read it to me and say, should I say this? And finally it got to the point where I said, honey, you don't have to reply to everything on Facebook.
Yep.
And you could just see like this relief in her face from hearing that, because it is intentionally built to make you feel like you have to reply. Yeah.
And your reply must be good.
Exactly.
Right? It must be great. It's got to be, you got to one up. Even if you like the person you're talking to, it's got to be better than whatever they said. And and then you see the family members especially got bad in the last few years around a family member saying something political, and then it was like, oh, don't. That's we have a no politics rule this podcast, and by talking about the no politics rule, we're not breaking it. But there's a reason why we have it, because we don't want to get that way. Right. Even if our politics is extremely vanilla and unoffensive or extremely offensive, either way, right? I'm not saying it's one or the other. Yeah. I'm a pirate, actually. I'm a part of the pirate party. I wear an eye patch.
You look good at it.
Long John Silver's for president. Yeah. Captain D's is his running mate this year.
As vice?
Captain D's
nice.
is the vice.
Nice. I like that. With malt vinegar as the head of the cabinet.
That makes me sick to my stomach, even thinking about it. Kind of like, never mind. Kind of like politics, I should say, in general. But I think that that politics made social media even worse. It took something that was bad and made it far more destructive. Yeah. Because it was tearing apart friends and family because they were posting about stuff that they would likely not have an argument or a discussion about face to face. You're not going to get together around the Christmas tree and talk about some of these things. And
sure, but on Facebook,
that they do, and it's a cesspool. So I think that connection. I wish that I could completely disconnect from social media, but I do really like Marketplace and I get great deals. So, I try to stick to that, but I'll occasionally look at my local page and like, oh, in the community, it is nice to know, like, hey, they're building this Starbucks. This is when it's going to open and things like that. That stuff's good to know, but so much of that I just don't need.
Sure. No, I get that. And I'll share one of the ways that I unplug, and not to say that this is how everybody has to do it, but it's one thing that works for me. I completely walk away from screens. And that includes e-readers, and I'll pick up a paper book. And I find something very calming about a paper book, and spending my time there instead of somewhere else. So that's one of my tools
that's a great
that I
one.
use.
It's also, I mean, the whole blue light thing and what it can do with anxiety and sleeplessness. I mean, it is good. I mean, devices do interrupt how your body perceives light, and can interrupt your sleep cycle. It's, there are biological reasons why we should not be engaging in this. Not just to mention the brain rewiring that comes from that constant reward, pattern of, I'm going to post this, get my endorphin.
Right.
Somebody liked that? Yeah, somebody liked my joke about Long John Silver's. Right. I post a lot about Long John Silver's, but no, there's lots of negative stuff that goes with being plugged in like that. And so, and unfortunately, the social media, the socials, Facebook and Google have, those identities have become part of your online presence, right? And they follow you around. I'm not going to get all weird and conspiratorial, but they do follow you around, and you use them to log into things. And that becomes the things you visit, the things you log into become part of your social story. And I don't think that's good. I don't want my mattress shopping and my looking at my granddaughter's pictures online. I don't want those things to be connected in any way, but they kind of are, right? They really truly are. That's just disturbing. But where else am I going to go to mattress shop, right? I mean, I can go to the store, I can look at the flyer, but I can do a whole lot more effective if I'm online doing it. And I realize there's browsers and there's browser plugins and technological things you can do. That just seems like a hassle. I'd rather just give all my identity away here. You give me 5% off. Yeah, you can have everything. You can take anything you want. You want my identity? You want to inject the chip? You're going to inject the chip. That way you'll know where I am at all times. Good idea.
And I can pay with waving my hand over.
Waving my hand over.
Sounds great. So what are other tools you use to unplug?
I honestly, this is a great question. So I had lots of stuff about getting to be over my head, right? Drowning in it. But the best that I've got is putting down the charger and walking away. Yeah. Now, and the other thing is, we don't have landlines anymore, right? I mean, the phone is our tool to do all communications. It's not like, okay, I can put that away, but because, the avocado green old rotary phone on the kitchen wall is going to ring if somebody really needs to get a hold of me. If they need to get a hold of you, they're going to reach you. Now, how it works in my world, I don't know about you, and is if something is important, a phone call or a text is what I get. Typically speaking, it's a text. And texts are generally reserved for pretty important things. And then, whether it's Messenger or you and I use Discord, and the work stuff is in Slack and email, it's outside of text. So when work folks say, can I text you? Oh, my boss likes to text. I'm like, no. Yeah. Can we? That's like the personal channel that I know, someone in my family or a friend needs something, right? It's not really a work channel. It's awfully familiar is maybe a way to put it. Can we use like Teams or Slack or email or what have you? So I pay attention to the text messages, and then the other little, the notification bar at the top of Android, as those fill up, if it's not a text message,
too bad.
Ignore it. And I'll check them at 8 a.m. in the morning, or if it's on a Sunday afternoon, I'll check it on Monday, or in the evening after the kids have gone to bed, and I've got a few minutes. If I want to have that clean inbox feeling before going into the workday, I might do that too. But I've just learned. I guess I've learned to discipline myself some. But I catch myself in Reddit holes and in Quora. Oh my goodness, I love Quora. Quora is so interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. And I know that, half of it's garbage, but I do fact check some of the stuff on there, and it's like, there's some really interesting stuff on here and anecdotes. And I like it. I like the writing style, I like the moderation, I like the curation, and I like the algorithm, that puts the that stuff in front of me, although I'm careful to not have news and opinion pushed to me. Little factoids about the space program, I don't mind just have pushed to me. It's like, hey, Quora thinks I need to know, what time Buzz Aldrin took communion on the moon, or Neil Armstrong. I can't remember which one of the two of them did that. That's an interesting little story. And what did the speech that Nixon wrote look like if they would have died on the moon? Right? Stuff like that. Really interesting stuff you can read on those that I would not just find, that I probably wouldn't run across if I was, if I was going through a library, for instance.
Now, this is kind of fascinating to me because I was the one that pushed for this topic. I thought it was a good topic to discuss and to make an episode about, but I don't think I realized how much of an old Luddite I am. I turn off all notifications on my phone.
Oh, wow.
I get nothing. There's no news. There's no stories pushed to me at all. If my phone dings, it's a phone call or a text message. That's it. I don't allow any other notifications to come to me.
Interesting.
A long time ago, I drew the line in the sand and I was like, there is nothing work that is ever going to be on my cell phone. If you want me to take work email or work messages on a cell phone, you're buying me a cell phone
and you're going to carry
and you're
two?
paying. Yeah. And I'll carry two.
Ooh,
and so they have, of course, that stopped the conversation right there. So I don't have that clean inbox need of a night because I know that's relegated to my work laptop. I don't have it anywhere else. And I guess I am just a crotchety old man because
I'm not too far. I just I think it's just the situations I've been in at work have demanded it. There was no question you're gonna have work stuff on your phone.
And
I have to do it I have to have it in order to be successful. And it's just the nature of my work. My work isn't.
This is maybe why I've never been successful. I'm seeing a connection.
It's the type of you have a skill, whereas I'm a spreadsheet jockey in management. Most of my work is just talking to people and making agreements and plans, which the primary tool for that is, frankly, email and phone calls.
That's
right?
true. That's very true.
So, I mean, I almost feel like my phone and some scratch paper and a pen, and I could just do my job. And I probably could come pretty close to it in some cases. But yeah, it's an interesting.
Okay.
I think that I don't feel like I wish that I could turn off Facebook. If it wasn't for the podcast and Marketplace, I could get rid of Facebook. But those two things, I need them. Twitter, I spend zero time on Twitter other than the bit that I do for TMAG. Reddit's probably the biggest problem and the one that I struggle with because it is the most negative and septic. And being plugged into that, if I could cut that off, I would. I feel like YouTube does waste a bit of my time, but I generally feel like it's not particularly negative. Most stuff I watch on there is pretty harmless and stupid.
Sure. Agreed. Same here. I'll share the other two ways that I unplug, and maybe they'll be beneficial to you or to somebody out there that's listening. But one thing I'll do is, and maybe this is less unplugging and more like if I'm running into a brick wall, if I'm trying to write something at work or come up with a different idea that's not coming to me, something like that, I'll change my medium. So instead of sitting at a computer and a keyboard, I'll get a notepad and a pen.
Oh, yeah.
Or instead of a notepad and pen, I've even gone to like a typewriter and been like, let's see what this will come up with, kind of a thing. So that's another one of my tools. And then the final tool that I use is journaling. I really find a huge benefit in having a notebook and kind of dumping my thoughts into it. Like my brain will jumble and just keep repeating things unless I do that. And then if I can kind of just throw everything out into the journal, then I can shut down and be present in the moment and not worry about things.
List making is how I handle that. I used to be better at it. I fall back into I've made the list in my head. I don't mean to make it, but that's actually the point, right? You get it down on paper and you don't have to have it in your head.
Right.
But yeah, list making is a similar approach that I'll do. Like, okay, but that's more that's less for plugging in. That's more for the getting work off my mind. But yeah, it is an approach. Make a list and email it to yourself, and then it's in your inbox. And then I check that email. It never ends. I got to send myself another email. Go back, check that again.
Because it's not marked as new anymore.
I'm caught in an endless loop. I think that this is a modern problem that every professional. No. This is a modern problem that everyone in our age that is at all relies on technology for communication.
Yeah.
So, the Amish and the Mennonites are fairly safe from this, but all of us deal with this in different ways. Some are better at it than others, right? Nothing drives me nuts, I will say this, more than we sit down to watch a movie or a TV show as a family, and I look over and people are on their phone. Because I don't do that. I am, this is one thing. If we say we're going to watch this, if there's a work thing or something like that, I will stop it, I will take care of it, and I will come back to the thing. But if I look over and there's like a funny joke, why am I the only one laughing? And I look over and my son and my wife are on their phones, and I'm like, get out of my house. Get out. I don't ever say that out loud.
I've written you out of the will.
You're done. And they're like, you don't have anything to give. I'm like, you're right. Good point.
Yeah.
My debt. No, it does drive me nuts.
Yeah.
And my wife always said, well, I didn't want to watch this anyways. And then she's like, okay, you win. You're right.
Yeah, that's a fairly common occurrence at my house, and it doesn't bother me if I'm the only one laughing. I'm still getting the enjoyment.
Oh, it drives me nuts. Because I want to experience it with other people. If I wanted to do it alone, I put my earbuds in and watch it on my phone.
Oh man, but I've had to watch my children learn how to unplug, and some of them are more successful at it than others. My son is a very introspective, thoughtful person. And I remember the day that he came to me as a teenager and he's like, I got to learn to put my phone down. And I'm like, yes, you do. Let me know if I can help you.
Does he do a lot of like Xbox gaming online and the chatting or PC gaming? Where
he does a lot of PC gaming online. Yeah. But it's more like for him, YouTube was the hugest problem for him. Because that was his go-to for entertainment, for for learning things, for anything. It was YouTube, and I guarantee you there are days of his life where he just watched YouTube from sun up to sundown. And we of course would discourage that, and he would be like, "Okay, Mom, okay, Dad," and then as soon as we turned our backs, he's back on YouTube. And so like that was one thing that I watched him grow and kind of overcome. And we had the discussion where it's like, YouTube's not bad. It's just the way that you sometimes use YouTube that's a problem.
Isn't that the same exact discussion that our parents were having with us in the 80s and 90s about TV?
Yes.
Like, okay, TV, it's not bad. You can learn things. There's good things,
Yes.
Like, yeah, there's going to be church on TV. It's like, it could be church. That's not bad. TV is good. But it's how you use it, right? And I think that, obviously the danger is that the with the new technology, they can pinpoint particularly sharp and evil messages, right? And you got to be careful about getting sucked into that. But it's same problem.
It is
with new technology around.
It absolutely is, and it's just a different way of in some ways a different way of thinking about it, different way of using it. Certainly TV doesn't have the interactivity that Facebook has, which I think makes it a little bit more powerful of a draw.
Drug. Yeah.
There you go.
The old endorphin thing. I'm sure there's a study somewhere that says that we've looked at the chemical signatures of the brain that is hooked to social media. It's just like taking heroin, right?
Probably.
You've heard that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, so I will put down my heroin and I'll try that. You know what? The heroin's better, guys. I'm going back. You were liars. They said this was as good as heroin. This is nothing like heroin.
That's how I quit Facebook. Was taking heroin. Yeah. No, so we do not endorse heroin in any way, shape, or form, ladies and gentlemen.
Speak for yourself.
But anyway, this honestly, this became a little bit more of a serious conversation than I expected it to be.
It is. Yeah. I'm looking for my notes for funny stories. Let's see here. No, I don't have any. It's a really because there's actually a social problem here, right? And the feedback loops. Like I said, the endorphins, I can put this on there. I can wait for likes. I can wait for reactions, even if they're bad reactions. Then I can react to their bad reactions,
right.
And it feeds upon itself. And then you've wasted time. You've made yourself angry and negative. And being connected, I think that being connected, problematic. I think what we've really come to conclude, if you want to say, what have we figured out today? Man, social media is a huge problem. And we haven't even gotten into, we've talked about the Gen X stuff, right? We haven't even gotten into, Insta and Insta is what the kids call it. It's what Kanye calls it.
Oh, I had no idea.
Instagram,
okay.
Insta.
Well,
Insta. Insta and then Snapchat.
Is that still around?
I don't know if it's still around or not.
I don't know.
I don't know. It is now, but
and then the ticks and the talks.
The ticks and the TikTok is the big dangerous one. And now YouTube is trying to getting in that game with its shorts.
Yeah,
get
I
that
hate
stuff
that.
off there.
I'm not
I'm
a
not
fan.
interested. I want 12 minutes of a crazy person ranting, not 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Give me the full 12 minutes.
Because that's what we grew up on, darn it.
That's I want long short form ranting, not this micro short form ranting.
Well, full disclaimer, I think we have to admit that the internet has brought good things in the world as well. But, with anything, it can be a bad thing. It can be an addicting thing. And unplugging, I'm pro unplugging. I think people should do it.
I agree. Tell you what, let's unplug this podcast right now.
Okay, but that means we're still coming back for another episode later, right?
Well, of course, I'm unplugging back in.
Okay, good. All right. Well, everybody share how you unplug.
That's right.
Tell us how wrong we are about the evils of social media.
Yeah, or hit us up on Facebook, tweet at us that horrible, awful, nothing good has come from it, internet and Twitter.
I think TMAG might be one of the good things.
TMAG is one of the
that
good
have come
things.
out of it. So,
that's right.
2 middleageguys.com. And same on Facebook and Twitter.
That's right. And everywhere you get your podcasts.
That's right. We're there.
We're there. You're listening to this. You probably know how to get a pod. I doubt this just came on accidentally. Unless your name's Gerald.
That's true. So what you should do is you should show a friend how to download 2 middle-aged guys
right.
trying to work it all out.
Don't share it on like a social media.
No,
just go walk up to them physically, give them a hug. That's how you should start off interactions physically. That's what I've learned. You give them a hug. Kiss on the forehead is good too. And you say, listen, brother or sister, I'm going to show you how to get to TMAG. And then by that time, the police have probably taken you away. But if you're still
not,
standing and you're not...
Yeah.
Or if you're able to hold up against the taser.
Pull up Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever and subscribe on their behalf.
Hit the bell. That's a YouTube thing. I don't even know what that means. Hit the bell.
There's a little bell icon that you
What does that mean, though? If you subscribe, why do you have to hit the bell? I don't understand.
You get notifications.
I'm so old.
The bell is the notification.
All right.
Yes,
I'm so old.
It's okay.
That's like when the microwave goes off.
Very similar. But it's past our bedtime now, folks. So we're signing off for tonight. We are unplugging at TMAG Studios, and we'll catch you next time.